This is a very old story, ancient story actually, about a old lacrosse game between the four-legged animals, which would be the bear, the turtle, and the deer, versus the winged birds, which would be the eagle, the owl, and the hawk. So the eagle and the bear meet in this clearing in the woods to determine the rules of the game. The rules of the game would be it's a one-goal game. As soon as someone scores the goal, the game will be over. With that, the two parties separate and they go back to their areas. The eagle meets the owl and the hawk in the trees, and the bear meets the deer and the turtle at his den, and they discuss their strategy. So the four-legged animals send out the turtle to face off against one of the winged birds. Well, as the eagle is looking down the tree, he sees these two little animals climbing up the base of the tree towards the birds, and he says to them, "Excuse me, but why are you coming up this tree when the game is between the animals and the birds?" And the first little animal says, "Well, the animals told us that we're too small to participate on their team, so we would like to play for the birds." And the eagle said, "Well, you're not birds." Well, the owl comes up with a thought, an idea, and that is that what they will do is they will fly down to the drum, they will nip a piece of leather off of the drum, and they will take this mouse and they will tie that leather to the mouse, which is exactly what they do. And with that, the eagle then grabs the mouse and throws him out of the tree. He then becomes a bat. The next animal is a squirrel. And of course, the squirrel cannot fly. However, the birds bring the squirrel to the top of the tree and they stretch his skin and they tie it between his legs on both sides and they throw the squirrel out of the tree. The squirrel now becomes the flying squirrel. And since he can fly, he can now play for the birds. And so their strategy for the birds is they are now going to send the squirrel out to face off against the turtle for possession of the ball. And possession of the ball certainly is key. Having the ball first certainly is very important in winning the contest. So there's a huge scrum in the middle of the field for the ball. The turtle tries to creep over it, and of course he's very powerful, and if he gets over top of the ball, he probably will gain possession, and the animals will gain possession of the ball first. However, since the squirrel is used to hunting and digging for his food source throughout the winter, he capably digs underneath the turtle, and he is successful in gaining possession of the ball, at which time he leaps, flies, if you will, into the tree, flies to a couple of branches, and passes the ball off to the hawk. The hawk now is seen flying over top of the meadow with the ball, being chased by the deer. And of course, the deer can never catch the hawk. And as we see the day becoming to end, the deer then is totally, absolutely exhausted, and he is no longer in the game. He is out of the game. He can no longer participate. He has no energy left. As nighttime falls, we see the hawk flying towards the owl, and the owl now gains possession of the ball at the top of the tree and says to the birds, "Well, there's no way that the bear will be able to get to me because I can see in the dark." And so as we see the morning arise, what we find is we find the eagle now flying over top of the bear. And every time the eagle flies over top of the bear reaches up and tries to cuff the eagle out of the sky to gain possession of the ball. And of course, that is never successful. So the eagle flies back to the top of the tree. He calls the hawk, he calls the owl, he calls the flying squirrel, and he calls the mouse, which is now the bat. And they discuss a strategy about how they might be able to score the winning goal versus the bear. And with that, the eagle proclaims, we are going to put the mouse, the bat, on my back, and we are going to fly over top of the bear. And every time that I fly over top of the bear is going to reach up and try to cuff me out of the sky, which is going to expose a spot in the lower part of his body where he is going to be vulnerable for the bat to fly through and deposit the ball in his den, creating a victory for the birds. And sure enough, the eagle now puts the bat on his back, flies over top of the bear. The bear reaches up to cuff him. The eagle flips over, releases the bat. The bat flies between the bear's legs and deposits the ball in the den. And the birds are successful in winning the game versus the four-legged animals. So I ask you, what would be some of the lessons learned from this very ancient story of the animals versus the winged birds in a lacrosse game? Well, to begin with, there is consensus by the birds on the strategy. There's trust that the strategy is a good one. There's belief that the strategy will work. There's a willingness of the birds to accept the smaller animals, so size doesn't always prevail. There's an inventiveness, if you will, on the part of the birds to create birds out of animals. There's an inventiveness here about being able to come up with a strategy that would successfully work in gaining a victory. But most importantly, it's a lesson in being able to discuss an issue and to come to some sort of a resolve of the issue, and then to be able to administer the decision that was arrived at in a successful manner. So these are hugely valued ideas and concepts that the young kids can learn through this very simplistic story about the animals versus the birds.